From the moment ABA was born, it felt like she didn't exist. Her parents never celebrated her birthday, no cake, no candles, not even a simple, happy birthday. While her siblings got gifts, hugs, and smiles, ABA got silence. At family dinners, there was never a seat for her. She would stand quietly in the corner, watching everyone laugh and eat like she was invisible. When she brought home good grades, no one clapped. When she was sick, no one checked on her. All the love in the house flowed in one direction, away from her. She often wondered what she did wrong, why she didn't deserve to be seen. Her siblings got birthday parties with balloons and visitors. She got forgotten. Sometimes, she would sit alone in her room and imagine a life where someone picked her first, where someone said, "I'm proud of you." But that life never came. Her parents made her feel like a mistake, like she didn't belong. The pain wasn't loud, it was quiet, the kind that stays deep in your chest. She didn't cry much, because even her tears felt unwanted. Every day, she wished for someone to notice her, even just once. But no one ever did. And so, she learned to smile in silence, to celebrate herself in her heart, and to keep moving like a shadow in her own home. She didn't know it yet, but this pain was shaping her into someone the world would never forget. ABA turned 25, and the day felt just like any other, quiet, empty, and forgotten. She woke up with a small hope in her heart, maybe this year would be different. Maybe someone would remember. Maybe there would be a message, a call, even just one person who thought of her. But the hours passed. Morning turned into afternoon, and afternoon into night. Her phone stayed silent. No texts. No calls. No one knocked on her door. Not a single, happy birthday. All she had was the same feeling she had every year, like she didn't matter. As she sat on her bed, staring at the phone that refused to light up, a memory returned. Her mother's voice, cold and sharp, "You were never meant to be." ABA was just a teenager when she heard those words, but they never left her. They became a scar in her heart, a reminder that she was never wanted. And now, on her 25th birthday, those words rang louder than ever. That night, something in her broke. But it wasn't the weak kind of broken. It was the kind that sets you free. She looked in the mirror, tears on her face, and said to herself, "If I mean nothing to them, they'll mean nothing to me." She wasn't going to beg for love anymore. She was done chasing people who only remembered her when it was convenient. She picked up her phone and deleted the numbers of everyone who had never shown up for her, family included. She unfollowed, blocked, and cleared the messages she used to scroll through just to feel close to someone. She wasn't bitter. She was just tired. Tired of giving her heart to people who couldn't even give her 5 seconds. That night, ABA made a quiet promise to herself. She would no longer cry for people who never clapped when she smiled. No longer wait for a love that never came. From now on, she would pour all that love into herself. She would build a life where she didn't need their approval to feel alive. She lit a candle, not for a cake, but for her freedom. She sat in the dark, watching the flame dance, and whispered, "Happy birthday, ABA. You made it." It wasn't the birthday she dreamed of, but it was the birthday where everything changed. She realized she had spent too many years trying to prove she was enough for people who had already made up their minds. But now, she was done proving. From this moment forward, she would walk differently. Speak differently. Live differently. Not out of anger, but from peace. The kind of peace that comes when you stop waiting for others to love you and start loving yourself without apology. ABA didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But one thing was clear, she would never again feel small in her own story. She would never again let silence define her worth. Her past had made her strong, and now she was ready to write a new chapter, one where she was no longer invisible. She wasn't just a forgotten daughter anymore. She was becoming the woman she always wanted to be. 1 week before her 25th birthday, something unexpected happened to ABA, something that felt like a scene from a dream. She was walking home from the market in Makurdi, carrying a small bag of groceries, her mind full of heavy thoughts. Her birthday was coming, and she already knew no one would remember. It was just going to be another quiet, lonely day. She sighed and looked down at her feet as she walked, not noticing the black Rolls-Royce parked just ahead. It wasn't until the door opened and a man stepped out that she looked up. He was tall, clean-shaven, wearing a sharp black suit and expensive shoes. Everything about him screamed success. ABA looked at him, confused, thinking maybe he was someone famous. But then the man smiled and said, "ABA." Her heart skipped. How did this stranger know her name? Before she could ask, he said something that made her freeze. "You gave me your lunch one day. I was just a homeless boy outside your school. You sat next to me and said, 'You matter.' That day changed everything." ABA's eyes widened as she stared at him, trying to remember. And then it came back to her, a cold day, years ago. A small boy sitting on the ground, dirty and hungry, while other students passed him like he didn't exist. But she couldn't. She had given him her bread and some water. They talked for just a few minutes, and she walked away thinking it was nothing. But to him, it was everything. "I've looked for you for years," he said softly. "Today, I saw you by chance, and I knew I couldn't lose you again." ABA was still in shock. She didn't know what to say. He smiled and said, "You helped me when you had nothing. Let me do the same for you." Before she could reply, he opened the car door wider and said, "Please, get in." ABA hesitated. Her whole life, people had walked past her, ignored her, made her feel like she didn't belong. And now, someone was opening a door, literally, just for her. She stepped into the car, still unsure if it was real. Inside, it smelled like leather and roses. There were bottles of water, soft music, and peace. For once, she didn't feel small. They drove around the city, talking. He told her how her kindness made him believe in himself. He got into school, worked hard, started a company, and now he was one of the youngest billionaires in the country. And all of it, he said, started with your small act of kindness. ABA listened with tears in her eyes. No one had ever told her she mattered, not like this. For the first time in her life, someone saw her. Not as a background character, not as someone to ignore, but as the person who changed their life. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't born to be invisible. Maybe she was born to be remembered. While her family sat around the dining table, laughing and pretending to plan a surprise birthday visit for ABA, she was already gone, far from the life where she was forgotten. They weren't planning it out of love, they were doing it to look good online. A few selfies, a video of them holding balloons, and some fake hugs just for the internet. But what they didn't know was that this birthday, ABA wasn't waiting for them. She wasn't sitting by the phone, hoping it would ring. She wasn't alone in her room with a candle and a quiet wish. This year, everything was different. That morning, a sleek black car picked her up. She didn't ask questions. She just smiled and got in. The man she had helped years ago, now a billionaire, had planned it all. They drove to a private airstrip, and waiting for her was something she had only seen in movies, a helicopter with her name painted on the side. Her eyes widened. "Is this for me?" she asked, still half dreaming. "Everything is for you," he said. The helicopter lifted into the sky, and as they flew over sparkling blue waters, she looked down at the world with a smile. For the first time, she felt above everything, not just in the air, but in life. After a short ride, they landed on a breathtaking private island. Palm trees swayed, waves danced on the shore, and a gentle breeze kissed her cheeks. As she stepped onto the beach, her hand over her heart, she saw them, fireworks shooting into the sky, golden letters glowing in the sand, spelling her name, ABA. A string quartet played beautiful music, and staff welcomed her with warm smiles and glasses of chilled juice. She stood there, frozen for a second. This couldn't be real. But it was. Every single part of it. She walked along the beach in a designer dress he had gifted her, her bare feet touching the soft sand. This was her birthday. Not a forgotten day. Not a lonely one. This was a day built for her. Her laughter rang out louder than the waves, full of joy, disbelief, and healing. There was a long table set up under fairy lights, full of her favorite food, flowers, and memories waiting to be made. People she didn't know came to greet her, important people, famous faces, but they all looked at her with admiration, as if she truly belonged. No one saw her as the girl who used to be invisible. Here, she was a queen. As the sun set, the man who made it all happen walked beside her and said, "This is only the beginning." And she believed him. Because finally, after years of being ignored, ABA was seen, celebrated, and cherished. And while her family posted fake, "Happy Birthday ABA," stories online, trying to look like they cared, she was toasting to a new life. A life where she didn't have to beg to be loved. A life where she didn't have to shrink to fit in. A life where she could finally shine. This was the birthday no one saw coming, not even her. The day after ABA's birthday, her family showed up at her apartment building, carrying balloons, fake smiles, and late gifts they had wrapped just that morning. Their plan was simple: knock on her door, act surprised, take some happy photos, and post them online with captions like, "Family is everything," and "We love you, ABA." Not because they truly cared, but because they wanted the world to think they did. They had ignored her all her life, forgotten her birthday every year, and made her feel like she didn't belong. But now that they had seen a glimpse of her new life online, the luxury, the photos, the people she was with, suddenly, they remembered her name. But it was too late. They stood at her door, fixing their hair, preparing to knock. One of them even rehearsed what to say first. But just before their hand touched the door, a delivery boy appeared. "Are you ABA's family?" he asked politely. They nodded. He handed them a tablet, smiled, and walked away. The screen was black, except for one button, "Play video." Confused, they pressed it. The screen lit up. ABA appeared, glowing in a designer dress, standing on a beach, smiling like never before. Music played softly in the background, and clips started to roll. ABA laughing at a candlelit dinner. ABA dancing with celebrities. ABA hugging children in an orphanage she now supports. ABA walking beside the billionaire who once had nothing and now gave her everything. The scenes were powerful, but it was her voice that made the silence around her family grow louder. "You never saw me," she said in the video, calm and clear. "Not when I brought home good grades. Not when I cried in silence. Not on birthdays. Not even when I needed a hug. You only see me now, because others do. But let me be clear, I'm not coming back." Her voice didn't sound angry. It sounded peaceful, like someone who had let go. "I used to wait for you," she continued. "Wait for a call, a message, anything. But this year, I celebrated with people who didn't wait to love me. This year, I smiled for real." The video ended with a final shot, ABA standing on a stage, lights shining down, a crowd clapping for her. Her last words echoed softly. "You didn't open your heart for me. So now, I won't open my door for you." And just like that, the screen went black. The hallway was quiet. No one said a word. The wrapped gifts suddenly felt heavy. The balloons began to fall slowly. The silence wasn't just around them, it was inside them now. They had come expecting to fake love. Instead, they had to face the truth: ABA had moved on. She wasn't the girl sitting alone, waiting to be noticed anymore. She had become the woman the world couldn't stop watching. And they were just the people standing outside a door that would never open again. The video started, and the hallway grew silent. ABA's family stood frozen, still holding the gifts and balloons they brought to pretend they cared. But the girl they used to ignore was no longer standing behind that door. She was on the screen now, and shining in a way they had never seen before. The first scene showed ABA walking through a beautiful garden, dressed in soft, flowing designer clothes. Her smile was bright, her head held high, and for the first time, she didn't look like the forgotten one. She looked like someone the world was proud to know. Then came a shot of her at a glamorous party, surrounded by celebrities. She laughed as she clinked glasses with people whose faces they had only seen in magazines. But she didn't look out of place, she looked like she belonged there. A camera followed her as she moved through the crowd with grace, her confidence lighting up the room. The next moment was even more powerful. Standing beside her was a tall man in a suit. The billionaire she once fed with her last piece of bread when he was a hungry boy on the street. Now, he stood proudly by her side, treating her like a queen. He wasn't there out of pity. He was there because she had changed his life, and now he was helping her change hers. Then, the video shifted. ABA was in an orphanage, hugging little children, handing out toys, books, and food. She smiled at a young girl, gently wiped her tears, and said something that caught her family's ears, "You matter." That one sentence, full of kindness, hit hard. Because ABA had once waited for those same words from them, and never got them. Her voice began to speak in the background. Calm, clear, and strong. You never saw me. Not when I was trying my best. Not when I sat quietly, hoping for love. You walked past me in the same house, like I wasn't there. You celebrated others while I stayed invisible. But now the world sees me. Scene after scene played. ABA giving a speech at a women's event, cutting a ribbon to open a free school, laughing with the billionaire as they handed scholarships to students. It wasn't just luxury. It was legacy. Then the final clip played, ABA, sitting on a chair at sunset, looking straight into the camera. No makeup, no fancy clothes. Just her, real and honest. Her voice softened. You never saw me until others did. Now, you'll only see me on screen. The screen faded to black. The video was over. But the silence it left behind was louder than anything else. Her family didn't move. They couldn't. Because in just a few minutes, they had lost what they never valued, a girl who once sat alone, dreaming of being loved, now transformed into a woman who knew her worth. And she didn't need them anymore. As the video ended and the screen turned black, silence fell heavier than ever before. ABA's family stood outside her apartment door, still holding the gifts they thought would fix everything. But there was no more knocking. No more pretending. That door was locked, not just with a key, but with years of pain, silence, and rejection. They had pushed her aside her whole life, always making her feel like she didn't belong, like her presence didn't matter. Now, when they finally wanted to be part of her life, they realized, they were too late. ABA hadn't just moved on, she had outgrown them. She had grown past the begging, the waiting, the silent tears. She had stepped into a world where she was seen, loved, and celebrated. A world that clapped when she entered the room, not one that ignored her at the dinner table. She had become a woman the world couldn't stop watching, and there was no space left for those who only saw her after everyone else did. Her family stood frozen, not because the door wouldn't open, but because the truth had. They didn't lose her in one day. They lost her little by little, every time they looked through her instead of at her. And now, that girl who once stood in the shadows had stepped fully into the light. Some doors don't reopen. And this one never would.